was friendly with someone many years ago, and he was a singer, an incredibly skilled, talented singer, and he had, it's hard to get jobs if you're not in some successful band or something like that as a singer.
Mm-hmm.
And he had just gotten cast in a tour, a national tour of a Broadway show to be one of the singers, which is a good gig if that's your field. But he was just getting into Shabbos, and so he wanted to keep Shabbos, but he was early on, and he also wanted to have this job, obviously. So he asked me, what should I do? And I was just starting out myself, and Rabbi Shlomo Karlovac was in town. I said, "What are you asking me for? Ask him." So he asked him, and this is the answer he gave. This is what Reb Shlomo said. Amazing answer. He said, "Have you ever met someone who you thought was your soulmate, and it turns out they weren't?" That was his answer. In other words, this job, you think it's your soulmate, but it isn't. It isn't.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think that, just to go further and give you just another answer, a complementary answer, but just a different perspective. You use the word success, and success is one of these incredibly powerful words. People would throw themselves in front of a bus for success. But then you ask the average person, how do you define success? And they'll be like, success, wait a second, you're willing to throw yourself in front of a bus for a thing that you can't define? There's a problem there. That is a problem. Every single person has to begin, if they want to get their life together and they want to be serious individuals, every single person has to begin by defining for themselves what is success.
Yeah. Well, I think the easiest answer that most people can come up with, I know the answer that I was raised with, and I'm coming from an observant home. I was raised in the modern Orthodox world, but I think, success was very much defined in material terms. How much money you make, how much achievement you've accomplished in your career, how well thought of you are by your colleagues, right? Also, do you have a successful marriage? Are you able to develop a family? And are you successful at transmitting your values and fundamental beliefs, Judaism, to the next generation?
See, the only problem with that is that you can have every single one of those things that you just mentioned, right?
Mm-hmm.
In spades, you can have every single one of those things and be miserable.
Yeah.
So if you have all of those things and you're miserable, how can you possibly define that as success?
Excellent point. You can't. That's the answer.
Exactly.
You can't.
Exactly. And so more and more, as like people's standards of living, just by virtue of the fact of their parents' wealth or just technology and everything like that, just rising up and lifting everybody up, people are less kind of in survival mode. And now they're thinking about happiness and prioritizing happiness. And the reality is that unless a person is in harmony with their soul, they are not truly going to be at that next level of happiness. Because we have been acquainted with transcendence now.
Mm-hmm.
And transcendence is really fleeting. And people are looking for transcendence in drugs and sex and entertainment and any way to numb their minds. But, people are sort of catching on to the fact that those are all kind of counterfeit forms of transcendence.
Yeah.
That the real transcendence you can just achieve through your relationship with God. And then once people catch on to that, they're like, wait a second, that's where the money is. They asked a famous bank robber, Willie Sutton, they said, why do you rob banks? He said, because that's where the money at. once you understand that you actually don't need anything to achieve this highest form of happiness, which is transcendence, then it's sort of like, just sign me up. And that's Torah, but you've got to find the right Torah teacher. See, a lot of people get confused. They think that just like you can buy Coca-Cola in a bodega, in a supermarket, from a hot dog vendor, and it's always going to be the same Coke. But you've got to find the Torah, and I'm talking about authentic Torah right now. Torah, true Torah, comes in many flavors. And you've got to make sure that you're finding the right wavelength of it. Because once you find that, you're set. And don't think if you went to a place where everyone raved about the rabbi or the teacher, whatever it is, and you didn't resonate with it, that it's not for you. It is for you, but you got to keep on looking for your teacher.
Yeah. That's a very beautiful, famous teaching in the ethics of our fathers of Aseh Lecha Rav, make for yourself a teacher. It doesn't say Aseh Rav. It says Aseh Lecha. It's exactly what you just said. Make for yourself. It's got to work for you. Right? Because every soul is different. By the way, Rav Kook, the late and great first chief rabbi of Israel, said also that how do you know what, there's a lot of ideas in Kabbalah that different souls connect with different aspects of Torah. The Orach Chaim HaKodesh wrote this as well, another great Kabbalistic commentator on the Chumash, on the Torah, that there's a Chelek HaTorah HaMeureset L'chol Yisrael. He says that there's a portion of Torah which is betrothed differently to each and every Jew. And when you find your Chelek of Torah, Rav Kook said, you should latch on to that, which means that you don't have to master every area of Judaism. You have to find the area of Judaism that speaks to you. And once you feel that, he wrote, that metaphysically is something you've, I guess, stumbled on what your chelek, your special portion of Torah, and you should be all over that. That's your go-to Torah.
Right. And then I would just add one more word. That's you've found your avenue to transcendence at that moment.
Yeah.
I'm learning a very exalted Torah book right now called the Pischei Sharim. Mm-hmm. And what he defines transcendence in a very amazing, surprising way. Most people will tell you transcendence is when you're able to essentially leave yourself in whatever the most beautiful, exalted version of that is, right? You go mm-hmm. to a higher place. But listen to this. Jewish thought says that your soul is partially contained within your body and outside your body as well. So it's one soul, but part of it is inside you. And the part that's outside of you actually goes all the way up to the highest heavens, to the throne of glory, right? Which in itself is amazing, because if you were to stand in the mirror and I were to ask you, where do you end? You would probably point to the top of your head. And yet the reality is every single person ends in the highest dimensions. Right? We're all giants, actually, if you could actually look at each other with the proper eyes. Mm. But anyway.
That, by the way, by the way, David, that's what some people believe is the idea behind wearing a yarmulke, that life does not end here. You know what I'm saying? That there's something above us. And you're saying not just something above us, that we extend into something beyond us or this world.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. In fact, they say that the body is the shoe of the soul. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Meaning to say that just like your shoe covers a very small part of your body, so too your body covers a very small part of your soul.
Yeah.
So it's just a truer way to actually see yourself. But anyway, what's the point? So the Pischei Sharim says the following definition of transcendence. That when you do something holy, right? You do a mitzvah, you learn some Torah, you sing a song, by the way, a holy song. You do kindness for another person, an act of love. that at that moment, you bring your higher self, that aspect of your soul which is outside you, you bring it into yourself.
Mm.
And that's transcendence. In other words, transcendence is not leaving your sense. Transcendence is not leaving yourself. Transcendence is actually taking the higher aspect of yourself and bringing it into yourself. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that
Yeah,
beautiful?
it is amazing. And it's also, thank you for sharing this, because it's also, I think, the main way that Judaism distinguishes itself, or is distinguished from some of the other Near Eastern religions that emphasize the concept of transcendence, let's say like Buddhism. Because the ultimate goal of Buddhism is really to transcend the finite limitations of one's physical self. Judaism believes in an aspect of that, but as you just beautifully said, that the ultimate goal is not to really escape the physical world. It's to bring down godliness into the physical world, to bring that element of spirituality, what we call in Hebrew kedusha, of holiness, into who we are. Like, we're not physical beings incidentally. God didn't like make a mistake and accidentally cause our souls to be in these bodies. He wanted the soul, he wanted the highest of spiritual anything to somehow be in this lowly physical realm, to create what the Kabbalists call a dira b'tachtonim, which is a dira is like a home for God, for the highest of spiritual dimensions in the tachton. Tachton is in the lower regions, in the physical world. So the goal really in Judaism is not what you were saying before, transcendentalism. The goal is that the transcendental is brought down to earth, and that's our task as the Jewish people. And I think, and I'm really happy we're having this conversation, because so much of religion is looked on as an escape. How can I spiritually escape the finitude and the, I don't know, just like the, people are numbing each other. You just said it before. We're numbing ourselves, to the baseness of our existence. So one way is just to get out of it, is to leave it. And some people misinterpret Torah and mitzvot as a way of leaving the physical. But it's exactly the opposite. It's exactly what you're saying. And I love your shoe analogy. I was just writing that down. Just like the shoe is the body. How did you put that? The shoe is the body for the soul.
So the body is the shoe of the soul.
Right. Okay, good.
The body is the shoe of the soul. That just like your shoe covers a small part of your body, so too the body only covers a small part of the soul.
Right.
And that's not mine, by the way. That might even be the Zohar for. That's from a holy book. And by the way, that definition of transcendence, the Pischei Sharim brings that from the Vilna Gaon.
Beautiful.